In honor of Letterer Appreciation Day 2022, I want to look at 4 aspects of lettering that I see in European comics, bande dessinée, that are different from your standard North American comics. Number 1, square balloons. You don't see these that much in North America. Overseas, they're usually used in particularly chatty books where they help squeeze in more words per panel. See a Largo Winch book, for example, or the worst possible offender I can think of, Blake and Mortimer. If you look carefully on a typical Blake and Mortimer page, you might find some art, but mostly you'll see lettering. Square balloons are used in books that usually, but not always, are aimed at older audiences with more serious fare also. There are, of course, exceptions to that. Tintin uses square word balloons also. Number 2, the lowercase I. And it's not the one you're thinking of. I don't know if this goes back any further, and I'm sure people will let me know in the comments, please do, but I picked this up from Asterix first, and that goes back to 1959. Check out the lowercase I letters in the middle of words. I like to call this sort of the inverse European crossbar I rule. It's a bit wordy, but it'll do. Anywhere you would use a crossbar I, use a crossbarless I. Anywhere you would use a crossbarless I, use a lowercase I. I don't know why, but I like it. It gives a little bounce to the lettering without being distracting or hard to read. It has a slightly more comedic tone to it. Not everyone does it, but it does show up from time to time. In a recent example of a book I read, Cinq Avril even used it, and that's far from a comedy. Maybe this is more of a younger reader's thing. Number 3, script fonts. You see these a lot in slice-of-life books, autobiographical stories about children or family dramas in particular. Maybe it's more comfortable for some people to hand letter, perhaps? I don't know. The English translations end up being digital, of course, and those can sometimes be hard to read. A good script font for comics dialogue is a tricky beast to create for sure. I had issues recently with Incredible, where the script was super scripty, very narrow, very tight. All the loops became hard to read. Other artists and other fonts use a slightly more open letter form that's easier to read, but you have to be careful when lettering a book like this that you don't get a script that kind of jams everything together and becomes a little trickier to read. Number 4, reuse the font. I love that modern translations work so hard, so often, to use the same or at least a similar looking font to the original French production. It's a good example of how lettering really is a part of the art. The art will look different with a different lettering style being done on top of it. The idea of lettering being an invisible art is pure myth. Also, it's crap. Lettering is seen right inside the art. It's insane to think that it doesn't have an effect on the impact of the art. And the way these European translations are almost always done in the same font or as similar a font as can possibly be found, often to the original's hand lettering, is a great way to show that. That's it, 4 points about the lettering in Franco-Belgian comics. If there's anything else you notice about lettering while reading BD, please leave a comment below. And happy Letterer Appreciation Day, everybody. Now go read a comic book and pay closer attention to what you're actually reading. Hint, it's the lettering.